G'day everyone, it's Jerry here from Succulent Fly Traps. Well, last year at the beginning of September, the beginning of spring, I attempted for the first time to cross-pollinate two genetically different or two different types of North American pitcher plants from my Carnivorous plants nursery. It was basically an experiment, it's purely for fun. But basically what I did, I transferred pollen from one flower onto another flower in the hope I was going to get viable seeds. Well, I'm glad to say at around about late autumn, the flower itself started to dry up and I could actually see seeds in the seed capsules. This is the actual seed capsule, what it looks like. There are no seeds in here because what I did was I transferred those seeds onto peat moss into pots. I left them here outside my backyard. I allowed the seeds go through a period called cold stratification. It basically means is that you just have to allow them to go through the wintry period, that cold wintry period. You've got to keep that peat moss nice and damp in the hope that they're going to come up in spring. Well, it's late November now, and I want to give you an update as to what the seeds or the seedlings look like. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to my YouTube channel for more quality Carnivorous plants videos, and don't forget to click the bell icon to receive notifications of my new videos. So this is the exact location where I stored my sown Sarracenia seeds, and these are the exact pots that I used for the seeds. Basically all I did was I filled the pots up with peat moss. It's a peat moss mixture that I use at my nursery here for all my carnivorous plants. I then placed the seeds on top of the peat moss mixture with my fingers. That's all I did. I ensured that the peat moss was damp at all times by placing these pots in these shallow water trays. I ensured that those water trays were filled with either distilled water, rainwater, or reverse osmosis filtered water. So as you can see here, there's nothing fancy or complex about the arrangement. It was important that I kept that peat moss and those seeds damp during that cold wintry period. It's called that cold stratification period. Unless those seeds are wet, then they won't sprout. The moisture has to go through that waxy coating on the seeds. This location over here, it's quite sheltered. That's over there is the western side. That's where the western sun sets. But of course, over here it's quite open. Over there is north and over there is east. So it does get a bit of light here. Hence why I chose this location, because back in winter when I sowed the seeds, it was getting a bit of morning light here, about 3 or 4 hours. I did go through some nerve-wracking moments during last winter and the beginning of this spring. The reason is because we got some moderate amounts of rainfall. Now that's good. The only thing is that, remember, those Sarracenia seeds were only placed on top of the peat moss with my fingers. That's the way you should sow the seeds. Therefore, they're vulnerable to any sort of rain. And that's exactly what I realised when I scurried out the back here during those rainfall periods. I noticed that a lot of those seeds had been dislodged. Not only that, some of them even ended up outside the pots. So as you can imagine, it was quite a nerve-wracking moment. What I should have done is I should have placed some fly screen on top of those pots, and I should have secured those fly screen pieces with some elastic bands. That would have been a lot better arrangement, would have kept the seeds in even during those rainfall periods. It wasn't all bad, because as I was out here trying to salvage those precious seeds, I peered into some of the pots, and this is what I saw. And these are the exact same seedlings. Aren't they absolutely beautiful? I wasn't going to take any more chances with those late winter rains. As soon as I allowed a few more of these to develop, I then transferred them into this larger pot, and I relocated this pot up here on my Carnivorous plants platform. So this pot is standing in water, just like all my other plants up here on my Carnivorous plants platform. There's another view back over here. As well as standing in water, what I like to do is occasionally I like to get my watering can and carefully just water it on top. Now that ensures that those Sarracenia seedlings are getting plenty of water. That peat moss is nice and damp. It also raises the humidity which the Sarracenia seedlings appreciate, especially during those really hot days. Oh, there's a seedling that just sprung back to life again. I've also purposely surrounded these seedlings with these larger Sarracenia plants. These plants are Sarracenia Flava, the variety is called rubricorpora. Now these exact plants are the ones that I sourced the pollen from the flower last year in spring. So these are genetically the same, these plants. And I find it amazing that these same plants that I sourced the pollen from are guarding the Sarracenia seedlings that I was able to produce after that cross-pollination. Now, when I say they're guarding these seedlings, I mean that they're providing some sort of rain protection. Whenever it does rain heavily, these plants sort of shelter these seedlings. These adult plants also provide filtered light. I didn't want to give these seedlings too much strong, harsh light. It is about to get to summer now, about to start summer, so it does get quite hot. I didn't want these seedlings to fry. You've got to realise that these seedlings are quite fragile. They're very vulnerable, so you should do all you can to nurture them in their early stages. When they do get larger, I will then of course put them out in the open sun, just like all my other adult plants up here. Now you'll notice here that there's a lot of genetic diversity happening. Remember, this was a cross-pollination that I did. I transferred pollen from a Sarracenia Flava rubricorpora variety and I transferred it onto a hybrid. The hybrid's called Sarracenia Flava, the form's called red tube, and that's crossed with an alata red throat. I know it's a mouthful, but it basically means that there's a lot of genetic diversity there, and this is what you're seeing right here with that cross-pollination. Some of these seedlings are larger, others are smaller. You do see some variety in the coloration of these individual seedlings. Some are quite lighter coloured, like that one there. Others are a little bit darker red. And others have a bit of both in the same seedling. And this one down here at the back, that picture there is almost like yellow, or very light orange anyway. So that's what I love about cross-pollinating, is that you just don't know what varieties Mother Nature will throw up. Of course, it's then up to you to decide which individual seedlings that you want, depending on what features and characteristics that they have that you desire. You can then grow that seedling to an adult plant, and then you can then vegetatively propagate it, meaning that you can then divide that plant into separate plants. Those plants that are produced are of course clones of the parent plant. They're genetically the same plant. So there you have it. If you're thinking about cross-pollinating, why not give my YouTube channel a visit. Have a look at my how to pollinate videos. There's about 2 of them there. They're very, very easy to understand, and most effectively the techniques in those videos work, because those techniques are the ones that I used for this cross-pollinating here, and these are the results, these beautiful seedlings. Of course, you will also need parent plants to source the pollen from, so why not give my online shop a visit. I've got some beautiful varieties of North American pitcher plants, so yeah, have a look and have a bit of fun with this project. It is a lot of fun. You do need to be a bit patient with it, but when you do get the seedlings like this, the results are more than worth it and very, very satisfying. So until next time everyone, happy growing and happy pollinating.